A foreign tourist came to a police station. He said, "A guy with a tattoo and a long beard forced me to give him my wallet." The police officer told him, "Don't worry, the criminal is one of these quintuplets. They've already been arrested. You just have to identify the one who attacked you." Look at these men. Can you help the tourist figure out who the attacker was? Not this guy. He has a tattoo on his left arm. Not this one. He can only use one hand. This guy has a short beard. This guy is wearing a cast, which leaves us with this man. Now, I've got a few rebus puzzles for you to crack. How hard can it be? This rebus is tasty. It stands for scrambled eggs. How about this one? It means misunderstanding between friends. What could this mean? It's downtown. You're walking through the park when you hear footsteps behind your back, and everything goes black. When you come to your senses, you find yourself in a dark basement illuminated by 15 burning candles.
I'll set you free if you solve my riddle correctly. But if not, you won't ever leave this place.
Oh no, there's someone in the shadows.
You see 15 candles. I'll blow out 6 of them. How many candles will remain?
What's going to be your answer? If you tell the mysterious person that 6 candles will remain, they'll let you go. After all, the rest of the candles will eventually burn down completely, all but the 6 which have been blown out. Someone stole expensive jewelry from Mrs. Doris's hotel room. It happened around 6 a.m. When the police came, the hotel owner told them that there was a heavy snowfall early in the morning. It destroyed all the evidence. Suddenly, one of the police officers spotted an infamous criminal. He had been accused of committing several robberies, but always managed to get away with it. The man denied being at the hotel at the time.
"I only came half an hour ago,"
he claimed. The police officers immediately understood he was lying. How? There's a thick layer of snow on the criminal's car. If he had been driving to the hotel, there would be no snow on the hood. It would have melted or got blown away by the wind. And since it's sunny now, it can't be new snow. Clara was in her hotel room when she heard someone knock on her door. She looked through the peephole and saw an unknown man standing outside. He introduced himself. "Hi, I'm the hotel manager. Sorry to bother you, but our database has crashed. Could you let me in to confirm some information?" Clara immediately rushed to her phone and called the security. Why? The badge on the man's shirt says Chloe Smith, and that's a female name, which means the man is a fake manager. Damien had problems with money. That's why he had to sell the only valuable thing he had, an expensive painting of a 17th century artist. The man who bought it showed the canvas to his friend, a police detective. After looking at the picture attentively, the detective said that the painting was a fake. How did he figure it out? There are electric power lines in the picture, but they didn't exist in the 17th century. Now, look at these teachers. Can you figure out which of them is a millionaire? A, B, or C? Ha! Tricked ya! It's actually not a riddle, but a mini psychological test. If you decided that Teacher A is a millionaire, you're amazingly energetic. You're also spontaneous and always ready to explore new places. If your choice was Teacher B, big, noisy parties aren't for you. They can leave you emotionally drained. And if you thought the millionaire was Teacher C, you're a social butterfly and the soul of any party. So, how true is this? Tell me in the comments below.
Yeah.
Detective Thomas went camping with his friends. At one point, he went to get some firewood. When he got back, he saw one of his friends, Alice, lying on the ground unconscious. There were 3 other people in the camp: Julie, Alice's friend, Mary, Alice's sister, and Adam, Alice's boyfriend. Thomas asked all of them to show him their belongings. Look at their stuff and try to figure out who has something to do with the state Alice is in. It's Julie. If you look attentively, you'll notice a picture of Adam among her things. She must have a crush on him. She likely hurt Alice out of jealousy. Eve went on an expedition to Antarctica with a group of scientists. 3 days into the expedition, Eve woke up and found out that all of her colleagues were missing. The only thing she found was an envelope. Inside, there was a letter. Apparently, a crazy scientist had taken her friends, and now Eve could only save them by cracking his riddles. Here's the first one. How many months have 28 days? The number you'll get is the number of feet you'll need to walk before you start digging. Eve knew the correct answer. All 12 months have 28 days. She walked 12 feet and started digging. The next clue was waiting for her there. It was a bag with a book, a can of paint, a screwdriver, and a note that said that the scientist had locked Eve's friends in his lab in a cave. It didn't take Eve long to find the cave, but there were 4 entrances leading inside. Passage 1 was guarded by venomous spiders. Passage 2 had a huge and pretty aggressive monkey blocking the entrance. In Passage 3, Eve saw a mammoth. And at the entrance to Passage 4, there was a bottomless well. Which tunnel should Eve choose? The third one. Mammoths have been extinct for thousands of years, so the animal the girl sees is likely a hologram. Eve entered the lab and saw a dog inside, but it wasn't a regular dog, it was a robot dog. Barking, it ran after Eve. The girl remembered she had a book, a can of paint, and a screwdriver in the bag she had found. What can she use to get rid of the robot? Eve should open the can with paint and throw it at the robot. Since the paint is liquid, it will likely cause the robo-dog to short-circuit. Eve breathed out in relief and started looking around. Suddenly, she saw a key on the floor. The girl picked it up and went to the next room. As soon as she walked in, the door closed behind her back, and a bizarre-sounding voice started to speak. In 15 minutes, toxic gas will fill the room. Your only chance to survive is to take the antidote before the gas is released. At this moment, Eve spotted a small box. She opened it and saw 4 pills and an instruction. Take 4 pills, 1 every 15 minutes. Will Eve have time to take all the pills before the gas fills the room? Yes, absolutely. The first 15 minutes will start after she takes the first pill, so taking 4 pills will take her 45 minutes. Eve got out of the room and finally found her friends, all tied up. She immediately set them free, but they needed to get out of there as soon as possible. They saw 3 doors leading outside. Behind the first door, there were hungry polar bears. Behind the second door, the air was so cold it was impossible to survive there. And behind the third door, there is a waist-deep lake with piranhas. Which way should the friends choose? The third one. The lab is in an ice cave, remember? The water in the lake will be frozen. They will simply walk on the ice and get out of the cave. Freedom!
Mary was walking through the park when she spotted a hungry kitten. The woman decided to share her snack with the animal. Unfortunately, there was a stream between her and the kitty. She squatted down to attract the cat's attention and showed it the food. The animal was next to her in no time. There was no bridge over the stream, and still, the cat wasn't wet. How is it possible? It happened in the winter and the stream was frozen. In a lake, there is a patch of lily pads. Every day, the patch doubles in size. If it takes 48 days for the patch to cover the entire lake, how long will it take for the patch to cover half the lake? The patch doubles in size every day. So on the 47th day, the patch will be half the size it is on the 48th day. You are in a place called Bobby's World, and there is only one law there. There is a mirror, but no reflection. There is pizza with cheese, but not with ham. There is pepper, but no salt. There is a door, yet no entrance or exit. What is the law in this strange world? Everything in Bobby's World must contain double letters in its name. Kenneth was hungry.
Oh my god!
He found a nice diner that served burgers and bought one. After a waiter brought him his order, Kenneth went to the bathroom to wash his hands. But when he came back, his burger was gone. The guy looked around the diner and understood who had taken his lunch. Can you figure it out? It's the young woman with a dog sitting at her feet and sniffing the air. If she was just drinking coffee, which is what she's pretending to do, the dog wouldn't be so interested in her. Look at these two guys. One is big and burly, and the other is short and thin. They're in a cafe, drinking identical drinks. The shorter one gulps his drink down in one go and leaves. The other man sips his drink slowly. Then he falls to the floor and is taken to a hospital. Can you explain why it happened if they had the same drinks? The drinks contained poisoned ice cubes. The man who enjoyed his drink gave these ice cubes time to melt and release the poison, while the other man didn't. An Arab sheikh told his two sons that they had to race their camels to a distant city to see who would inherit his fortune. The one whose camel arrived last would win. After wandering aimlessly for days, the brothers asked a wise man for advice. After listening to his opinion, they jumped on the camels and raced as fast as they could to their destination. What did the man tell them? The wise man told them to switch their camels. Look at these two guys. They're wearing similar clothes, both holding coffee cups, and in general, seem to be perfectly okay. But one of them is a werewolf in disguise. Which one? Look at the guy on the right. There are strange marks on the rim of his cup. Were they left by his fangs? Also, his pupils are a bit elongated. And there is a paw print design on the plastic bag he's holding. Is it a special store for werewolves? A rich entrepreneur disappeared from his office. The only thing he left behind was a note with the numbers 6, 4, 9, 10, and 11 and a calendar. The police have 5 suspects. All of them the businessman's acquaintances. James, Kevin, Carol, Jason, and Laura. Who knows something about the man's disappearance? Jason. The numbers mean months of the year, and the first letters of these months make up his name. Jason. A furious traveler at the airport claimed the contents of his baggage had disappeared. When I got my suitcase, it was empty. I want you to compensate for what I've lost. After checking the passenger's info, airport security found out that he had indeed left London with a heavy suitcase, and now his bag was empty and a bit wet. The whole situation was suspicious. Can you figure out what happened? The passenger left London with a suitcase full of ice. During the flight, the ice melted, and the man demanded compensation for the lost belongings. Matthew bought a new smartphone and a phone case. He paid $510. The gadget cost $500 more than the case. How much did Matthew pay for the phone? He paid $505. Last night, on a full moon, several people disappeared in the city. Locals believe that the kidnapper was a werewolf, and you are invited to investigate this case. There are 3 suspects, Jack, Levi, and Luke, but all of them have alibis. Jack was walking with his girlfriend near the river. Levi was choosing a silver ring for himself in the mall. And Luke, who is a museum guard, had a night shift at work. Which guy is guilty? Jack was walking under a full moon and didn't turn into a werewolf. Levi wasn't afraid to put on silver rings. The werewolf and potential kidnapper is Luke. Detective Black's assistant, Josh, was late for work. When he arrived, he told his boss the following story. I was driving along the highway when I saw an unconscious man lying on the left side of the road. I picked him up and took him to the nearest hospital. Finally, he came to his senses. He told me he had been pushed out of a moving vehicle, but the bag with all his money and documents was left inside. Strangely, Detective Black told Josh that the man had lied to him. How did he figure it out? If the man had indeed been pushed out of the car, he would have been lying on the right side of the road, not the left one. Criminals caught 3 men and locked them in a basement with only one window, high above the floor. Oh, no. The men decided that at least one of them needed to escape and warn the police. The men stood on each other's shoulders, but the one on the top still couldn't reach the window. But then they did something, and one of them managed to escape. Can you figure out what they did? The tallest of them climbed on the top, and since, proportionally, this man also had longer arms, he managed to reach the window. You find yourself in a room with no windows. There are 3 doors leading out of the room. Suddenly, a big screen on the wall lights up. You read, "Behind each of these doors there is some danger. The first door leads to a scorching hot desert, several steps, and the sun will burn you. Behind the second door, there is a hungry alligator that hasn't eaten for a year. And the third door hides a pool with icy water. To get to freedom, you'll have to swim across it. Which door should you choose to survive?" Alligators can indeed go without food for up to 3 years, which means that the creature behind the second door is hungry and dangerous. Freezing water can cause cold shock in an unprepared swimmer. That's why you should choose the first door. You just need to wait for the sun to go down and walk through the desert.
Oh, yes.
James came to a cafe to drink coffee. But when a waitress brought him a cup, the man found a fly in his drink. He called the waitress and told her to bring him another coffee. She did. But when James took a sip from his cup, he got really angry and asked to call a manager. He complained that the waitress had brought him the same coffee. How did he understand it? The new coffee was already sweet because James had already put sugar in his first cup before finding the fly.
There was once a magical forest inhabited by elves and gnomes. Since they didn't get along very well, they lived in 2 different parts of the forest to avoid all conflict. One day, centaurs invaded the forest and elves and gnomes were forced out. running in different directions. Let's follow a small group of 6 creatures, 3 elves and 3 gnomes. They ran west, but unfortunately, they stumbled across a lake. None of them could swim, but luckily, there was a raft. The raft could only carry 2 creatures at once, 2 elves, 2 gnomes, or 1 elf and 1 gnome. So, you need to figure out a way for all of them to cross the lake safely. Now, here's the problem. If there are more gnomes on one side than elves, they will attack them. Even if an elf is on the raft, but not in the part of the lake where there are more gnomes than elves, it's still not safe. Can you figure out a way for them all to cross the lake safely? Okay, so here are 5 possible first steps. 1 elf crosses the lake, or 1 gnome, or 2 elves, 2 gnomes, or 1 elf and 1 gnome. But it doesn't make any sense to cross the lake alone since they need to send the raft back somehow. So those 2 options are out. 2 elves can't cross the lake together because then the 3rd elf will be left alone with 3 gnomes and they will attack him. So it's either 2 gnomes crossing the lake first or an elf and a gnome. So let's go with the 2 gnomes. So 2 of them cross the lake, and of course, 1 of them has to come back. Now what? 2 elves can't leave together because the 3rd one is in danger. If an elf and a gnome leave together, then the one who is leaving will be in danger as soon as they cross the river. So 2 more gnomes leave together, and then 1 comes back. An elf and a gnome can't leave together because then there will be 3 gnomes and 1 elf on the other side. So this time, 2 elves cross the lake together. Who comes back? Not an elf, because the other one can't be left alone there. A gnome can't go back alone. Otherwise, there will be 2 gnomes and 1 elf on the first shore. So, a plot twist. An elf and a gnome come back together. Now, 2 gnomes can't cross the lake. An elf and a gnome can't go either. So the 2 remaining elves go to the other shore together. None of them can now return since there are 2 gnomes left on that shore. So a gnome will return to pick up one of his buddies. Then another gnome will go to pick up the last gnome. But it's not the only solution. You could also succeed by sending a gnome and an elf together as a first move. Here's a graph of how it would play out. But remember, no matter how far you travel, there's no place like gnome. Okay, great job! Now it's time for the second riddle, and this one comes from Esme. This girl often goes for a walk in a forest and typically gets lost. This time, though, she doesn't get lost. Here's her way home, but she's tempted to go visit her old friend, a witch, who lives in that forest. Esme has an amazing riddle, and it's pretty hard, so she thinks she has a good chance of winning the witch's cat. So, Esme goes to the witch's house and offers the following. I bet you can't solve my riddle. If I'm right, your cat will go home with me. The witch believes she can solve any riddle, so she takes that risk. Esme puts a big acute triangle on the table. Here, you can make 7 cuts to make this triangle disappear. Every piece you cut off that is an acute triangle will disappear. But if a triangle has an angle that is right or obtuse, that piece will stay. Once again, 7 cuts, and you have to make the whole triangle disappear. Not a single smallest piece can be left. So, how can the witch do that and keep her cat? Whenever you make a cut, it'll either produce 2 right angles or an acute and obtuse angle. The witch seems to be doomed, but then she looks at the pizza she hasn't finished. When you cut into more than 4 pieces, all angles are acute. The problem is that a pizza is round, and we're dealing with a triangle. Still, the trick also works with other shapes, like hexagons and pentagons. Good for the witch, she can make a pentagon out of this acute triangle by making just 2 cuts. The small cut-off triangles are acute, and they disappear. Now, the witch needs to deal with the pentagon like she does with a pizza. Cut it into 5 pieces using the last 5 cuts. That's a success story. Hey, we know you like the cat, Esme, but maybe get one of your own. Okay, do you think you can crack another one? I promise it's the last one for today, and it's quite fun. No more geometry. Here's how the story goes. 1,000 years ago, 6 siblings founded a magical school. Ingram, Regalia, and Corona are witches, and Agnard, Ardumo, and Modnar are wizards. A pair of siblings found a house each, and the names of those houses are Rymeth, Madlo, and Damora. All 6 of them also founded the 4th house, named after their 7th sibling who went missing when they were young. You are invited to study in the magical school, but as you arrive, you have to be sorted into your house. You have to put your hand on the sorting book and wait for its decision to light up on the cover. When you do it, the book sees potential in you. So instead of sorting you into one of the 3 houses right away, it gives you an opportunity to get into the 4th house, where the most gifted young magicians go. To prove that you're good enough to be sorted into that house, you have to solve the sorting riddle. The task is to guess the name of the special house, which no one but its students knows. But you have some guidelines that can serve as hints. First, you have to find out who founded which house. Here are some statements. Every house was founded by a brother and a sister. Corona and Regula found Rymeth and Madlo, but not necessarily in this order. Ingram and Ardumo founded Madlo and Damora, but not necessarily in this order. Agnard and Regala founded the same house. Now, after you figure it out, the next step is to guess the name of the secret house. To find it out, find what all siblings have in common. So, are you gifted enough to get sorted into that special house? First, you have to find out who founded which house. So, the pair is always a brother and sister. Let's look at conditions 2 and 3. Each of them mention Madlo. Both Corona and Regala are sisters, which means that no matter who founded Madlo, it already has a sister founder. Therefore, Ingram, who is also a witch, couldn't have founded this house, which means that Madlo was founded by Ardumo, so Ingram founded Damora. Agnard founded the same house with Regala, so it was Modnor who founded Damora with Ingram. Therefore, it only leaves us with Rymeth for Agnar and Regala. Finally, Corona founded Madlo. Okay, great. Now we have to figure out the name of the 5th house. What do the siblings have in common? Of course, all of them have the letter R in their names. Let's put them in the order of appearance of the letter in their names, starting with Regala. Under each of their names, let's put the name of the house they founded. Now, the respective letters under each R form the name Radota. That's the name of their missing sister, and that's what the 4th house is called. So, pal, if you figured it out, congratulations, and welcome home.
You need to take 2 apples from your garden and bring them to your friend. But she lives on the other bank of the river. To get to her house, you need to cross a bridge. It can hold your weight and the weight of 1 apple. If you try to step on the bridge with 2 apples, it'll collapse into the water, which is swarming with piranhas. What can you do to bring your friend 2 apples if you can only make 1 trip? You should cross the bridge while juggling the apples. A billionaire's wife called the police at 8 a.m. on Sunday morning. She said she just found her husband unconscious in his study. A baseball bat was lying next to him on the floor. The police questioned everyone who lived in the house. The wife said she had been away, buying her husband a present for their 10th wedding anniversary. The driver said he had left the evening before. He went to his parents' house because they needed some help. And the cook said he'd been preparing breakfast since 6 a.m. and hadn't left the kitchen. Who's lying? The wife. Stores aren't likely to be open so early on Sunday morning. Olivia was visiting her friend Ava, who lived in another city. In Ava's house, there was one room that was always locked, and Olivia wasn't allowed to enter that room. but she knew Ava kept the key for that room in her desk drawer. And one day, while her friend was away, Olivia took the key and unlocked the room. It was dark inside, so Olivia switched on the light. In the middle of the room, there was a table with a book lying on it. Suddenly, Olivia heard the front door open. She quickly switched off the light, locked the room, put the key back into the drawer, and pretended to be watching TV. Sometime later, Ava came up to her and asked, "Why did you enter the room that I asked you not to enter?" How did she understand Olivia had been to the room? Ava touched the light bulb, and it was hot. A glass jar is standing on the table so that a part of it is in the air. In half an hour, the jar will fall to the floor. Why? What's inside the jar? Inside the jar, there's some ice, but its weight is distributed in such a way that the jar is balanced. Once the ice melts and turns into water, the jar will fall. Susan worked in a clothing store that sold expensive designer items. One day, she discovered that someone had stolen a pair of pants. Look at the people who were inside at that time. Try to figure out who the thief is. It's the guy on the right. If you look attentively at his legs, you'll see the pants peeping out from under his jeans. Stephen had a storeroom in his house. It got locked with a special padlock which could be closed without a key. But to open it, Stephen had to use one. The only person who had the key was Stephen. There were no duplicates. The man locked the door carefully every evening. But one day, a golden brooch was found lying in the middle of his storeroom. It had been stolen from a museum the day before. The police suspected that Stephen was the thief because no one else had the key to the storeroom, and the man lived alone. Stephen knew for sure he was innocent, but then, how did the brooch appear in the room? Stephen was obviously framed. While he was in the storeroom, the real criminal changed the padlock. Stephen didn't need the key to lock it. That's why he didn't realize the padlock had been changed. Later, the thief opened the lock with his own key and left the brooch inside the room. Uh-oh, something's gone terribly wrong here. Can you solve this case and figure out which food is poisonous? If you ask me, all these dishes look questionable. I mean, look at them. Spiders, strange green fumes, roaches. But the dish that caused food poisoning is actually these French fries. See those flies around the plate? They don't seem to be alive. That green sauce on top of the fries must be the poison. Now, I have a tricky question for you. When are 1,893 and 2,548 smaller than 498? When they are years BCE. Detective Michael Brown went missing while investigating a tricky case. His friend, Detective Williams, found out that one of their colleagues was behind his disappearance. Williams visited Brown's home, and his friend's wife gave him a note. "Michael told me to give it to you if something happened to him." In the note, there were 4 numbers: 2, 8, 6, 7. Williams started to question his colleagues. "I've been away visiting my parents," said Tess. Jack said, "I haven't seen Brown for a couple of days." And Nora replied, "I'm just a trainee. Detective Brown gave me a task and I was busy with it." Williams thought for a while, looked at the note again, and understood who was guilty. Have you figured it out too? It was Tess. 2, 8, 6, 7. The first letters of these numbers make up her name. A treasure hunter got lost in a forest, but after he had been walking for some time, he noticed a crossroad with a big stone in the middle. There was a note on this stone which read, 4 plus NO 5. The man realized that the sign showed the direction to the treasure, but it was written in some tricky cipher. Can you help the treasure hunter to decipher the code? The man should turn the note upside down. Then it will read south. That's where the treasure is. When Elizabeth was 2 years old, her sister was twice her age. Now, Elizabeth is 18. How old is her sister? Her sister is 20 now. Let's have some fun with a few non-standard riddles. Who is bigger? Mr. Bigger, Mrs. Bigger, or their baby daughter? Their daughter, because she's a little bigger. Neat, right? Why do birds fly south in the winter? Flying is much better than walking. What do you get after you crossbreed a radio and a fridge? Some seriously cool music. Why does a math book look so unhappy? Its problems are rarely solved. What is the easiest way to double your money? The only easy way to do it is to put your money in front of a mirror. Let's get back on a more serious detective track. Kevin woke up in a hospital. He only remembers his name and nothing else. A doctor came in to check on the guy. He said 3 young women were waiting to see Kevin. The women came in. Strangely, each of them claimed she was the guy's sister. Only one of them was telling the truth. Who is it? It's the one in the middle. She has a birthmark on her hand, and Kevin has a similar one. Megan invited her friends to a restaurant to celebrate her birthday. They had a lot of fun. Megan got the best birthday present ever. Her friends gave her a ring with a large diamond. But suddenly, the room plunged into darkness. After several minutes, the lights came back on, but Megan's ring was gone. Look at the image attentively and try to figure out who stole it. It's the waiter. Look at the glass he's holding. He put the ring inside. Now there's much more water in it than before the power went out. Jacob's girlfriend, Nicole, loved riddles. One day, she was on a business trip to France. She called Jacob and told him it was her relative's birthday. "Could you go and congratulate my family member, please?" When the guy asked her which relative he had to visit, Nicole answered, "It's the daughter of the only son of my grandfather." Who is this mysterious relative Jacob was asked to congratulate? It's Nicole's sister. Stuart works as a teacher in an old British magic school, which is located in a beautiful castle. Early in the morning, he's walking down the corridor. Suddenly, Stuart hears a loud noise from the class and goes there to check. He sees 3 students raising their wands. One of them is a fake wizard. Can you guess who? This guy. He has an ordinary twig instead of a magic wand. Stuart settles down the quarrel and goes to the dining hall. He chooses one of these 4 breakfast sets. But Stuart doesn't eat any meat or fish. Also, he's allergic to all the purple fruits and berries. Can you help him choose the safest option? First of all, let's exclude the first breakfast. This cotton cheese bagel looks good, but it contains salmon. The second set has toast with blueberry jam, which may cause an allergic reaction. As for the fourth option, fried bacon is hiding under this cute waffle. So, Stuart should choose the third option. Although it contains some purple cabbage, nobody said that he's allergic to purple vegetables too. The cook offers Stuart a deal.
If you guess my riddle, you'll get a double dessert.
Stuart agrees. Here's the riddle.
What melts in a freezer?
The frost when the freezer is switched off. After breakfast, Stuart goes to the school greenhouse to say hi to Miss Palmer. She looks very confused.
In the morning, 3 evil wizards opened a magical portal and snuck into the greenhouse. They took the shape of my plants, and now I don't know where they are.
Can you help Stuart find them? Take a look at this cactus. It has no root. It just floats in the air without a pot. All the lilies have 6 petals, but this one only has 5. And this pumpkin has a watermelon pattern and color. Therefore, these 3 odd plants should be the wizards. Stuart walks down the Great Hall. Suddenly, an owl lands on his head and ruins his hairstyling. Stuart gets furious and asks 3 students standing nearby, "Whose owl is this?" Can you spot the owner of this bird? It's this guy. He has the same colored accessory as his owl. It's time for the flying lesson. 3 students, Wendy, Drake, and Blair, are about to have a race on their broomsticks. Can you spot who's cheating? Blair is casting a spell on her broomstick to make it go faster. Blair gets disqualified. Meanwhile, Drake and Wendy and Rob get ready to start the race. Can you guess who's gonna win? Drake has a broken broom, and Rob's position is wrong. It will take him more time to catch the broom and hit the road, so Wendy has the best chance of winning. Stuart begins Transfiguration lesson. He gives each of his students an apple and asks them to turn the fruits into stones. And then Stuart goes to the toilet. After a while, he returns and finds a huge toad sitting on his desk. Stuart questions 3 suspects. Among the students, Drake says, "I didn't do it. I was too busy with your task. Luckily, I made it." Bella says,
"It was Magnus. I saw him catching a toad in the pond last night."
And Magnus says,
"It was Drake. He wanted to distract you because he didn't do his homework."
Who's lying? Drake, take a look at his desk. There's an apple in front of him, but he said that he succeeded in turning it into a stone. Stuart is riding a broom in the garden during his lunch break. Suddenly, someone throws a purple paint tube on his head. Stuart loses balance and falls. He finds 3 suspects and interrogates them. Billy says,
I was just sitting under this ancient oak and doing my own work.
Bella says,
I was painting Billy's portrait. At some point, I noticed that my purple paint was missing. We both were here all the time.
And Lily says,
I was just flying on my broom. I didn't even see any paint, sir.
Who pranked Stuart? There's purple paint on Bella's hands, but it's okay because she was painting. Billy's outfit looks fine, but Lily has these odd smudges of purple paint on her hair. That's because she hid the tube under her witchy hat after the prank. Stuart is visiting the human world once a week because he loves one local bakery. But today, he finds out that he's not the only magical guy here. Can you guess why? Take a look at this pretty lady. She looks young, but her reflection in the mirror shows she's an old witchy lady. Every winter, a fancy ball takes place at the magic school. Several students perform a traditional dance as part of the opening ceremony. Suddenly, one of the dancers, Lily, loses her balance and falls in front of everyone. Stuart decides to investigate this case and finds out that someone had spilled olive oil on the dance floor on purpose. He interrogates 3 suspects. Harry says,
Sir, I didn't do it. Lily is my girlfriend. Why would I prank her so meanly?
Richard says, Lily totally deserved that. She refused to go to the ball with me. I don't know who did it, but I'm grateful to this person. And Bella says,
Before the performance, I was taking selfies with my boyfriend. Look at the pictures, if you don't believe me.
Now Stuart knows exactly who's guilty. What about you? It was Bella. Take a look at her selfies. She's wearing a witch bottle necklace and it's filled with greenish oil, but now it's empty. The magic school hired a photographer to take fancy pictures at the ball. This photo was taken at midnight, and this one half an hour later. Can you guess what happened here? This wizard didn't push her. He was actually trying to save her by raising his hands and casting a spell. And he succeeded, as we can see from the second picture. The winter ball is over. Stuart throws an after party for teachers at his apartment. Everything goes well, but the next day, Stuart finds out that someone had stolen the rarest and most expensive spell book from his secret library. Stuart has never told anyone about this room, but the lock isn't broken, which means that the thief knew a special spell to open the door. Only 4 guests possess this level of magic: Ambrose, Morgana, Rosamond, and Richard. Stuart rushes to the teacher's room. He questions all the suspects. Each teacher claims to have nothing to do with the robbery. Can you guess who's the thief? Ambrose. His coat is missing 1 gold button because he dropped it at the crime scene. Meanwhile, Ambrose looks through the spellbook and finds a potion recipe that allows teleporting anywhere. But unfortunately, the last 3 ingredients are encoded. Here's a hint to crack the first one. It's a flower that can be found between the nose and the chin. Any idea what it might be? Tulips. Here's the next hint. What kind of vegetable do people look forward to getting every month? celery. And this clue will lead you to the final ingredient. What kind of room can you eat? Mushroom. Ambrose finishes the potion and teleports to an unknown place. In the evening, Stuart arranges an urgent Zoom call with his fellow wizards. They're all currently in the same city, but they don't have time to meet offline. Unfortunately, their video call gets interrupted by a stranger. Can you spot the imposter? All the wizards live in the same city, which means they're in the same time zone. The call takes place in the evening. It should be dark outside, but this guy is in the middle of a sunny day. Therefore, he's the imposter. Stuart goes to the magic market to buy special ingredients for a potion that will help him find the stolen book. 1 violet costs 10 bronze coins, and the price for 1 lily is 15 coins. Can you calculate the price of this 1 starflower? One starflower will cost 20 bronze coins. Each flower costs 2.5 coins per petal. And this particular starflower has 8 petals.